Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt. And today we talk to author William Linville about how to harmonize our higher self with our lower self so that we manifest the highest expression of universal consciousness within each of us. So, with that, William, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor and such a blast. So thank you so much, Vaughn.
Oh, you're welcome. So, I know you actually have a speaking engagement coming up pretty soon at the Higher Self Expo on July 17th through 18th. So that is going to be a fun one. But before we get into that and your work that you'll be discussing there, can you tell everyone your story for how you even got into this in the first place?
Well, it all started December 20th, 1996, on a surgery table in San Diego, California. My body was getting gastric bypass, the Roux-en-Y procedure done. And what occurred at that time was I was connecting with the body as I was connecting with the old will as well, which many get confused because a walk-in is not an entity, it's a soul, it's a being. And the soul and the being that was in this body before the surgery, he had tried and tried many times to take his own life. He was over 425 pounds. And of course, by agreement, mutual agreement between he and I and the whole universe, I was able to assist him to make a full transition. And that's when I came into the form. And I'll never forget it. I woke up on the 7th floor looking out the window at the most amazing sunset ever, right in San Diego, right on the coast, where you could just see the water and glistening on the water, which is so gold, a little bit of orange. It's so magical. And that's when I opened my eyes and it's like, oh, okay, well, cool. I know all these people around, the old Will family monad, but it's kind of interesting knowing them and having all the data and information, but also not recognizing them. So on one hand, okay, you're the mother, okay, you're the sister, you're the brother, you're the cousin, blah, blah, blah. But wow, who are you really? And because there wasn't that familial sort of bond that you would experience in a family monad based in magnetics and, all the old karmic debris eons ago when the karmic ladder work was still in place and all the soul level journey or attributes. So, okay, I, greeted everyone and went on with my day kind of thing and stayed in the hospital for probably a few more days. Then it was time to go home. So here I go, I'm going home. And then within a matter of about a week, the body started shutting down system after system after system. The mind was pretty much fried because I ended up started falling, started losing my vision, and eventually the body started eating itself away. And I was in a wheelchair for 2.5 years in extreme pain due to the myelin sheath being eaten away. And then, oddly enough, it's like all these soul memories, all of the old sojourner known as the original Will. Well, I was now finding that I was clearing out his debris. 2 weeks in bed, I was given a death sentence 8 different times. That Will, there's nothing more we can do for you, and all the extreme pain and so forth. So I ended up getting a pain pump inserted. I was still in the wheelchair, and things weren't looking so hot as far as not being able to make it or pull it through. But sure enough, a year went by and on. And then finally, I had met a dear one. Her name was.
Okay, real quick, before you get into the dear one that help you transition to the next phase of your transition, I have a couple questions about
Anything
the
go.
walk-in
Oh,
because
awesome.
I'm very familiar with the walk-in soul. And I actually have clients that are walk-in souls that trying to figure out what is the deal with all this.
Exactly,
What is
exactly.
going on? What did I sign up for? Et cetera, et cetera. So let's clarify for everybody what a walk-in soul is. And I actually have an example of one on a recent client that I worked with. But can you clarify for people what is a walk-in soul?
It's when the soul that came into the body when the body was in the gestational process leaves the body. So therefore, the body is empty. There's no personality. There's no consciousness. See, when I came in, it was to pick up the slack from the old soul, rebuild the body in my image. It wasn't about taking over another dear one's body.
Mm-hmm.
The dear one wandered off the planet, so that he escorted out, I escorted in. And
And
via,
why did he want off the, I mean, do you have any remembrance of
yeah,
this
yeah,
agreement? Okay, so where was your soul previously before you did the exchange for this
Sirius,
body?
Sirius.
You were in Sirius. Okay. So you're a what they would call in popular culture a star seed, but you're basically from the Sirius star system.
Yeah,
Okay. And so did your original soul embody another being in the Sirius star system?
no. In that
No.
star system, it was just pure consciousness. It was, there wasn't really form.
Okay.
It was more
Okay.
of a collective.
And so how did you know, okay, William Linville on Earth wants out of his contract, this life contract. How did you come across that call?
Well, the best way to explain it is, here I am existing, emanating through Sirius, and I see and hear this echo, this frequency, this tone. It's somewhat of a yearning. And then going that direction, following it as a frequency and a tone, it's almost like something out of sync, like in your car engine per se.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to become attracted to it. And then you also start to connect with the higher self of the dear one whose body that you're going to inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
You make these agreements, and it was like the old will was yearning and yearning to be out of pain, guilt,
Mm.
resentment, familial issues, karmic issues. And
Right, right. So the original William, prior to this surgery, they like he's going to do it again. He's going to incarnate again and have to carry out his life lessons. So why did he, when you were having this ethereal conversation to trade spaces and do each other a favor or do him a favor, why did he decide to check out per se? I mean, why not finish out the plan that he had already, came in to do?
because via agreement, he was very depressed, very shut down. And, via the agreement we made, I was going to assist him to make a full transition, and I would pick up the slack. So therefore,
Hmm.
he, as a soul, was no longer caught within the karmic lattice work. And through the karmic lattice work, that's what keeps souls reincarnating. He got
To make right a wrong that they created in a lifetime. Is that?
kind of like balancing out imbalances within themselves.
Hmm.
Like if I took someone off the planet, the next time around, they may do the same, or maybe we'll both wake up simultaneously. And now the karmic lattice work is not so dense, magnetized, and condensified.
Hmm.
The magnetics are split up to where now their ones are able to make a full transition, is stepping out of the cyclical cycle of the karmic wheel.
Hmm. Well, maybe that's a conversation on the other side for the original soul. What to do with their life lessons that they had set
Yeah.
up for themselves prior to incarnation, so they can rebalance those unbalanced energies, or when and other people would call it karma in Buddhism. I actually have a story that relates to this, and maybe you can give some answers to this, because as we talk about this walk-in concept. I had a client who had um years ago, but last year he had come in for hypnosis and consultation, and he had come in because he had dreams about his childhood best friend. Okay.
Mhm.
um, his childhood best friend that he was young adult with. And he had dreams of his childhood best friend where he was just kind of hanging out and having fun. For like a year, he would have these continuing, random, recurring dreams of hanging out with his best friend. And then one day, his best friend said in his dreams, "Hey man, I'm gonna reincarnate again." He's like, "Oh, exciting!" And he's like, "No, no, no, it's gonna be different. I'm gonna reincarnate into a young man, a 13, 14-year-old young man who's incarcerated in prison right now." Okay. He screwed up his life so bad that he can't carry on his plan. And so because I have experience as a juvenile in our childhood, um, we have a similar frequency. So I'm able to understand where he's coming from. So I'm helping him out, and I'm going to walk into his body. But here's the problem. I don't have any remembrance at all of who I was before, and you or anything else, because I completely forget everything coming into the earth experience. But I need your help. I need you to help me get myself straight and on the correct path so I can carry on and finish out this kid's contract as him. And so that's what my client's experience was. And so we decided, okay, the best way to help him is without getting involved, because my client is in his 50s, and this walk-in is going into a teenager's body who's incarcerated for homicide. That he didn't do it, but he was part of it with his siblings. But it was so. Anyways, the way that in which that we were able to find a way to help everybody and still keep a respectful boundary for his journey is to just send some, because I am a book author and I write Buddhism books about raising your frequency and transcending the earth experience. So I sent him some of my books, and sent his incarcerated family members who were part of it some of my books. And we just send the best intentions and well-being, so that uh, in finding the material and reading it, that could help them raise their frequency and help them get out of that, get into a better place in the rest of their life. But this was the experience recently that I had of a walking soul asking a living soul, who's my client, for help because he's not going to remember. So my question for you is, why do you have remembrance coming into the earth experience of all this? Because he has no remembrance.
Well, the reason is when I picked up the package, it can be confusing at times because I have all these memories that are not my memory.
Mm-hmm.
I have all these experiences that are not my experience. I didn't come in wide awake and fully alert. I came in about as dense as you can be. Now,
Mm.
and that was part of the body shutting down, dying off, because he was in pretty good health, except for being over 425 pounds when he went into surgery. Now,
Right.
when I picked up the body, that's when the body started breaking down and breaking down. And the nervous system, the body was eating away its own organs. And a major part of that was the whole body dissolving, shutting down. I call it more like cleaning out the archives, but then new energy, a new paradigm coming into the body. So therefore, I have
Mm-hmm.
old memories, but now I have my total awareness that's coming in and coming through, and it grows every moment, every day.
So you
Now,
remember more, you slowly remember more as you anchor in more of your
and,
original
and also
memory. Okay.
more that you're clearing out the debris, the gunk, judgment, identification, pain, and all that fun stuff. That when you sit here, you just take a breath. Okay, it is what it is. But see, you're not steering it back to anchoring in again. I'm not giving it energy. I'm letting it die off. And
Mm-hmm.
each unveilment through that, including quantum leaping and so forth, that and even in RA, keep me unfolding as quickly as I can handle for my highest best good, higher levels, and let's go. And literally, where there's nothing to hold on to, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to identify with. It's just
Right.
opening, moving, expanding. And that's where you speed up to such a level of vibratory frequencies of megahertz of light that the clouds are gone, and now it's a direct connection. The
Right,
more
right,
you're running with it.
right. So the original soul of William had a hard time letting go of all these dense, I would call it third dimensional issues that he had gathered in his life. He was not able to transcend them or work through them or, learn from them, whatever you want to call that. And you just came in and you just process it all. You
Yeah,
okay,
by agreement, I came in to clear what I call clear the decks,
clear
soul,
decks.
mind, and body.
Right. So you did the forgiveness, you did the letting go, you did the understanding, you did the transcending, you did all the stuff that he just had a hard
Including,
time doing.
yeah, including finding the benefits.
And learning the life lessons to get the benefits so that you know how to create moving forward. So you did that all for him. And bless his soul in his next incarnation because he's going to pick up where he had left off, and hopefully the next time around, he is going to have some support and the ability to be able to do all that and
Hmm.
and accelerate his spiritual evolution. Well, let me ask you this. This is another thing I was curious about with the walk-ins. Why would a soul who is in Sirius, who doesn't have, and you said the Sirius is basically energy beings in the Sirius constellation, and they don't necessarily have bodies. So you guys have what they would call quote quote light bodies or basically energy bodies. Why would you go from the energy body down to the dense physical body? What do you get out of it?
Everything, because in that state, that's where many get so confused, Vaughn, at times that
Hmm.
I want to leave the planet, I want to go to heaven, I want to leave the planet, I want to go here, blah, blah, blah. It's so not like that. You
What
don't
is
have,
it like? Explain to people why being a higher frequency incarnate in the physical is such a gift and why we don't see it. Explain to them why there's such a long line for that experience.
because once you pick up a body, for one, you have sight, for two, you have smell, three, all the senses, feeling,
Hmm.
corpuscles of touch, taste, and even awareness that you are you inside of a physical form.
Hmm.
And where you pick it up to, for one, accelerate it. So you're coming, let's say you're slowing down vibratorily to fit into a form, the form speeding up to hopefully find a middle point.
Hmm.
And then from there you integrate, you marry with your higher levels, your cradle levels, and then
Hmm.
technically the whole universe, to where now we use it as a tool for grounding, basically just an anchor to animate through. Otherwise, beyond that, it's like everything just is. There's no heights, there's no lows, there's no way to feel any of the above.
Hmm.
You recognize it as a feeling or a presence. And
Mm.
I so beautifully, I get to enjoy having a physical form. I get to enjoy driving a car vehicle, playing with the animal kingdoms, the plant kingdoms, the oceanic realms, my bride, and all the dear ones that I facilitate and assist. And it's that spark of love, that spark of
Mhm.
light, spark of joy that ignites. It becomes a brush fire, then a forest fire, and then through all the fire grids and the light
Mhm.
grids, and then clearing out the density and souls that have been stuck in the grid system.
Okay, well, now we get to this concept of souls being, quote, stuck in the grid system. So, define the grid system for people so do they understand where you're coming from. What is the grid system?
Okay, there's the planetary grid system that would, it is the magnetics in which gravity, but also it holds the very dirt, sand, particles
Hmm.
together to give it
Right.
the appearance of form. Now, it has become more and more sluggish at times. It's become a
Hmm.
lot denser at times. That's part of what we're watching right now with the funky weather and the astroplanes collapsing, and that now you're walking in a feeling breathing body, but you're also walking on a feeling breathing planet. To
Hmm.
what happens from here, all these underground I call them like veins, waterways, veins, and so forth, all that network that is speeding up and speeding up. It's a harmonic convergence to start dissipating and dissipating, and where even the magnetics are becoming, rather than rock solid, they're becoming more fleeted, more expansive, to where you're bringing your energy bodies, you're bringing your light bodies, and your creator consciousness and your consciousness into right here, right now, and letting the planet literally open up all around you, including circumstances and situations.
Right, right. And in terms of the astroplanes, which is this, a non-physical plane of existence, you're saying that that's breaking down. How is that breaking down? And how does that relate to this plane of physical form?
It relates in every way. You see, we can call it the global warming. We can call it the astroplanes of consciousness, mass collective consciousness, all these things. Well, what happens is the faster humanity is going, the vibratory levels are speeding up, including the planet, especially your body. What happens is all this stuff that was at one time was like a big magnetic, or let's call it a big giant rubber tire around the planet. Now the particles that made up that form are dissipating. So therefore, the more that we're waking up, we're activating, walking our walk, emanating. Well, that's cracking all this stuff up to where it's no longer has that solidified state. And then the planet, you start jamming, then the planet jams, then you jam, then the planet jams. It's such a beautiful dance, because it's taken all this stuff that has been magnetically surrounding the cosmic lattice work, the astral planes of consciousness, so forth, and you're beaming right through it. That also has the dense heaviness, sluggishness, and the magnetic dissipate and collapse, because it's also birthing brighter too.
Well, that goes into my next question about raising consciousness. So in Buddhism, we call people who incarnate again into this experience to help raise consciousness. They're doing what we would call the Bodhisattva journey. We're helping everybody raise their consciousness so they can get there together, and so they can all get to those high resonance with consciousness. So what is your mission in doing this? Because obviously you answer the call of this young soul that wants out of his contract. That was one thing, but is there like a greater mission that you came here for? Because you're talking in terms of Earth's consciousness and the evolution of just humanity. So what is your mission in all that?
To marry with my light bodies, marry with the rest of myself, to embody creator consciousness through this form, and to be as clear, pure, and iridescent as I can be, as I'm assisting more and more dear ones to wake up on their own journey and to also accelerate. And then masters after masters, accelerating, affecting the whole, but then also going into how to be in a body on a planet in a way, shape, and form of harmonize rather than discourse.
Right. And let me ask you something too, in terms of that mission of harmonizing the higher frequencies of consciousness, connecting with source consciousness in the physical, and just mirroring all of it into this experience. There is this concept in some spiritual circles of, we got to get to our light body. We got to shed the physical body. We don't need this physical body anymore, because this is a lower frame of existence. We want to get just to a light body. So you came from a light body existence where you didn't have the physical body, and you're coming into the physical body. Can you explain your thoughts on that perspective, that the light body, the non-physical body, is better than the physical body, that some people keep saying in these circles?
Yeah. Now, if you could imagine, just right here, right now, stepping right out of your body, you have no thought, you have no contemplation, you don't have an identity, no self-image, no worthy, not worthy, blah, blah, blah stuff. To get into what many are calling their light bodies, it's basically just a whole complete state of spaciousness, isness, but you don't know that it's isness because you don't have anything to base it on.
You don't have a mirror. You don't have any kind of polarity to reflect back to yourself.
Any dualities. You just
no duality.
You just are. Now you have a body, so yeah, part of the big picture is, all right, let's accelerate. Not, and this is where, and I'm glad you asked this one, because so many different ones, they go into suffering, like I may not be happy now, but once I'm out of my body, I'll be, I don't know, walking with Jesus or the Buddha or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't work like that, because even the Jesus and Buddha, they don't have their form anymore, but they have mastered this realm in their own divine mastery to accelerate overcoming the fears of death, overcoming all this other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
to truly step into a whole new harmonize, I want to add, through their bodies, to activate, amplify, and then, you know, laughing, chuckling, because there's eons of humor, but at
Yeah.
the same time where you're receptive and expressive because you have a form. Now,
Yeah.
many that want to hurry up, get out of the body. Well, I mean this with most love, most respect, but you're kind of going the wrong direction. And because you want to divinitize your form, that's how you get to your light bodies.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, so it really comes back to the concept of linear thought. The linear thought that many people have is, oh, we got to work in to raise our frequency. We got to get to our light bodies. We got to shed these physical bodies because we don't longer need these forms anymore. And when you get all the way to that point, you just go back to now let's integrate all of what we know in these higher consciousness and higher realms of frequencies, and let's integrate it into the physical form. So now you are divinity embodied.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about it
Mm-hmm.
is that I make humor with it. Like, if you want to see how far you are along your journey, go spend the holidays with your family. You know, I mean, because
I actually enjoy it, so.
I love it too, but I say it due to, like, I call it the Enlightenment Olympics. Who's further along, on and on and on. Well, let's just, if we can for a minute, let's just light all that on fire. And let's ask ourselves, how much light, how much love, how much pure essence, pure consciousness can I emanate just right this second? You know, with not tomorrow, not yesterday, but really right this second. And let's take in a breath into the nose, down into the lower tummy, hold, and then exhaling as slow as you can through the mouth. Because this is what it's about, walking through new portals, new doorways of self-discovery and exploration. And you start to, it's kind of amazing because there's no end to you. There's
Right,
just a beginning called waking up.
right. And so
And wouldn't
why
it be
did,
awesome,
go
wouldn't it
ahead.
be, I'm sorry, wouldn't it be awesome to be in the middle of the ocean with or without food, or the middle of the desert in the outback in Australia, blah, 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 the middle of Metropolis, Wall Street? Wouldn't it be amazing to be there, but unaffected by it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get that a lot because it seems to be some people put a value system on the different levels of consciousness, the spirit body being the physical body, and they put a value system, whereas it's like putting a value system in your evolution. Like, let's say you take a concept of grade school. You have grade school, you have college, you have, all these different experiences. And getting your PhD is no less sweet than graduating from kindergarten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when you look at it like that, even with, like, let's call it echelons, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, wouldn't it be a bummer if we never had ever again a disposal engineer, a trash person? Because that's just as important. The janitor is the CEO. So it's like,
Yep.
now we take it from there, put it here side by side,
Mm-hmm.
as equality state, and how you have just as much of a purpose as everyone else. Then you may have all these letters behind your name, you may have all these degrees, and that's great. Awesome job, great mastery. Now it's just a matter, okay, with those or without those, how does that affect the light beingness and the love that you emanate? And receive, for that matter.
Right, right. And then, the other thing also about like your mission to raise consciousness in this form that you have incarnated in as a walk-in is not just to shed another perspective on many humans' value system of their spiritual journey from the light body to the physical body and that separation perspective, but also, what about the perspective of the people who are awake versus the people who are asleep, the people who are good versus the people who are evil, the people who are quote, quote, light workers and spiritual warriors versus the people who are going against that? I mean, there's a lot of dual concepts at play, and there's just different ways of creating the same old game. What does a walk-in soul from Sirius think about these dueling concepts that people come up with in terms of consciousness?
Yeah, I have a lot of compassion for them because I look at this and it's like the evil doer, okay, that's what they're doing. They're not evil, they're just doing evil acts. This one over here may be christening a baby or something, and that I find them technically equal. You know,
And explain that equality for people, because this is how you can emerge the higher self and the lower self, because all of these are concepts. The higher self, same concept of duality, the higher self being higher and the lower self being lower, not, not as equivalent as the higher self. And we're talking about merging it all to a harmonized, peaceful, high frequency state as one consciousness. So people, there's this these are buzzwords right now between the woke people, the awakened people, and the lovingly coined sheeple, though not awake people. So please describe your perspective on that new play on separation.
Okay, so with this whole woke, not woke thing, if I was gonna go out for the night, I would definitely encourage you to hang out with the unwoken people, because oddly enough, they have less of an ego. Now,
Yeah.
and it's more fun too. but the two diverse
Spiritual ego is a big thing.
Oh, and it's just unbelievable big thing. And
There's another way to create ego.
yeah, exactly. It's like a CEO versus a janitor. Well, they're just two different life paths. One's not better than the other. All of it serves the purpose for the whole. Now, we can go out and trade enlightenment words or whatever, but that's not you being you. That's you having a long-term memory. Now it's really what's behind the words, what's behind or inside your heart, your heart, and really your own diligence of, okay, look, I may have a thought, I may have a murderous thought, I may have a loving thought. Let's skip all that for a minute. Let's skip the judgment that puts it into another box. Thought is only a thought until you give it power. So therefore, I would say everyone are totally waking up, done deal. But now it's an unfoldment, an unveilment. Some dear ones, going through the whole COVID stuff and all that, some dear ones are at that breaking point of saying, okay, am I getting my attention or am I just not getting my attention? I'm speaking for you as you from your higher levels, talking to the little self-identification part. And yeah, sometimes they punch their ticket and go play elsewhere. Now, if they're not getting their attention, because it's what I love, because you look at all this stuff and it's like, how is it that the elders or whatever in the Aboriginal tribes in no man's land or way up in the middle of the Yukon,
right,
have never seen an enlightenment book, heard an enlightenment book, but they're awake? Isn't that just amazing how that works?
Yeah. There's a lot, and that goes into my question about how infinite consciousness people. So, so there seems to be more infinite consciousness people incarnating at this time, or high frequency people incarnating at time, or source code souls incarnating this time, whether it be a walk-in or they're coming in on birth or whatever. How does that relate to what humanity is going through in terms of leveling up their frequency with Earth as she levels up her frequency? Why does it seem that there's so much more infinite consciousness people incarnating at this time?
Because when the new paradigm started, harmonic convergence back in 87, on and on. Well, now we have the next evolvement. of the DNA, the next evolvement of dear ones, especially going back from what we were talking about earlier, the karmic class work, dear ones coming in now, that they're not coming in to play a certain script for you. You play a script and see if you're going to remove each other from the planet or who can do it first. You're not.
Right.
And
Right.
not like in linebacker mode, more like expressive, open-hearted mode. And then, there are all the fancy tag words, the indigos, the rainbows, the crystals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're just all these different names, different purposes, but different names. But when it all comes down to it, it's like the advancement of the evolvement of the human species, even waking up to human, which you being the ancient sound of creator in the mammalian species. So all this stuff's being wiped out of your eyes and your heart. And then this flip side of the whole COVID calamities is this whole thing around dear ones waking up, or even waking up, like it's like waking up out of a shock that I don't even remember that I had a wife and 3 kids at home. I totally forgot that what the whole familial bond is. I totally forgot about what I love, when I love, and I've been so in my warrior gladiator gear trying to plow through.
Yeah.
Like right there. And it's part of the beautiful, like pulling off the mask and we can breathe again, right?
Yeah, and and that's what I found very interesting about ego. In my observation of ego and the lower self, we just we in terms of understanding, in terms of the human brain understanding things and concepts, they have to put some linearity measurement for growth. So in terms of ego identification,
What do you mean by that?
linearity. So in my observation of people, they need to know where they're going based on where they came from. They need some framework. And so these labels, these timelines, these
markers,
isolating they're markers so that they understand their evolution. And then when you get all the way to infinite consciousness, you come back and you're like, there is no markers. It's all just some different points in your experience. It's all just one big experience. And they, it's almost like watching a flower bloom. There's different progressive points for it to bloom, but it's one big orchestrated event. And so if you look at the seed, you're going to have an opinion about the seed, but if you look at the bloom, you're going to have an opinion about the bloom. And you might put some value judgments between the starting seed and the bloom. But a higher consciousness person would be like, no, it's all valid because it's all one big event that's happening right now. And what I found interesting about the concept of ego and why ego is given such a bad reputation in spiritual circles, in many spiritual circles, and people's concept of ego identity is that we must let it go. We completely have to let go of ego. And yes, you can let go of ego and be infinite consciousness in the body. But what are your thoughts on living with a harmonized ego, which is like your lower self, your identity self, with your higher self, and just living just completely with your higher self and completely letting go of ego during the life experience? I mean, I don't see one as being better than, but for some people, they see one as being better than the other.
Okay.
Live with ego, live without ego. What are your thoughts on this argument about ego?
Okay, well, when I look at it and contemplate it, I look at ego. It's once again, it's like a thought. U.S. creator commanded that thought to be real. Maybe it was a traumatic event and your mom ran and rushed you out of the road, yelling and screaming, and because a bus or something's coming. Well, that's where you anchor it in. You say, I'm not safe, or I did something wrong, or I'm bad, or I'm good. And you as creator command that to be the truth of yourself. Therefore, we have this normal energy that would keep flowing. Now it gets blocked up and stopped. And that's called emotion. Now the emotion is feeding the ego, making this are tighter and tighter. Now, I would say, as far as living with no ego, I really don't see a purpose to sit back and create all these beliefs and judge yourself, anyone else, and everything else. I find that to be more. I watch bodies get sick because of that stuff, if not leave the planet. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you look at that, and then running around as your higher self 24/7. Well, I would say I would step out of both of those polarities and just come right
Mm-hmm.
to your heart. A thought is a thought, not good, not bad. Now, you as your higher self, yeah, all right, bring in the rest of me. Higher levels, take them in, speak through me, stir
Right,
me.
right.
But, but I'm not going to polarize myself as if I'm going to demonize the ego. See, the ego is different than the mind. The mind's your friend, the body's your
Mm-hmm.
friend, they're your tools. Now you start unraveling those decisions that you made when your mom ran out in the middle of the street yelling and screaming out of her own panic.
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at what occurred, you take a look at what you decided, and you say, is this working for me anymore? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's coming up because you've outgrown it, or you're getting closer to look at it right in the eye so you can outgrow it to where it's not creating this torment within yourself or your life anymore. Because then we get back to the grounded part. Chop wood, carry water. You know, we all have bodies, and bodies
Right.
require food and water, blah, blah, blah. So, but there's that part of being aware, but not being afraid of not having. That's
Right,
like
right.
a whole other ego dance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, the concept of ego, in my understanding of ego, study Buddhism and metaphysics and other areas of how they see ego, is that it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Sometimes it is good to have ego, because if, let's say, you are in a relationship with somebody that you value, and it's your one-on-one relationship, sometimes you do want to have an identity where you're not
Yeah.
so open to everybody sharing your relationship
You're expressing from your journey in your
from your
heart.
journey. Yeah.
In your heart.
Yeah, so sometimes ego, I mean, ego can not be part of the experience, and it's just all your higher self creating something. You can bring ego back. We create ego. We create our ego. And if we're creating something, it's obviously serving a purpose.
Yeah, well, in the part I love about that part from what you're saying is that, like right now, let's take the ego,
Hmm.
put it right out here, right beside us. Let's have a chat with it. You, as your higher self, talking with the ego talking back to you, eh, to fight anything. And that's why I still scratch my head about let's go battle in the Peace Corps, because battle and peace don't really go together. But
Right, right.
we're able to have a dialogue with it, knowing that you're not it. It is a consciousness within itself. So
Hmm.
now we can use it, put it right here in the chair next to us, and we can have a great conversation. We can get along. It could become your friend. There's
Hmm.
no, so many demonize it, but it's not demonized really a bull.
Hmm.
It's just a live deity that's been through all these experiences that are still affecting, like from the solar plexus down,
Hmm.
carnality wise. It says, okay, we got to watch out for this, watch out for that, blah, 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 called primal carnality. But you can mature it up to be your best friend beside you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That I found that very interesting in terms of ego, because okay, so we're gonna get into this concept. This is very high level for a lot of people, getting very esoteric. But if you want to understand to bridge the higher self and the lower self, which you're going to be talking about at the Higher Self Expo in detail, so like in Buddhism, we have this concept that people, like everyone is energy. That's all you are, is energy. And these bodies that we embody is the avatar in which we chose to play this experience. The storylines that we play into, we're playing roles and we're playing out certain storylines that source is experiencing through us and directly. But everything in the physical, in the matrix, in form, is a creation and manifestation of the consciousness of the individual, the energetic soul. So you being a walking from a light body energy being coming into the body, what is your perspective on how the spirit has the consciousness of the spirit has dominion over how forms are created.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, let me explain this further. A lot of people, young souls, come into this form and think that the form, the physical form, is stronger than the consciousness viewing and creating that form. Whereas it's the opposite. It is the consciousness that creates physical form. And
Yeah.
we actually have dominion over how we create things. But can you explain from your experience being a light body energy being embodied as those walking experience coming into form, how consciousness creates form? Can you clarify that for people?
Yeah. So, for an example, let's just all stand at the top of Mount Everest or Rushmore, wherever you may be.
Mm-hmm.
Just stand right there at the very top, overseeing all of creation.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you're in your element, or in an aeroplane above it all. We
Mm-hmm.
just gently take a breath, look out the window to see the beauty, form for the sake of form. Now we have another thought that arises, which is, what would I love to experience, or what would I love this form to look like? What would I
Mm-hmm.
love to do with the form, if anything? Now we're stepping out of you and all your majesticness, being that of your higher level beingness. And now we're going to get our hands dirty with, starting now, we're shifting our trajectory from the wide openness to, now we're going to zero into one, like to this one pin, to where now the room disappeared. Now we have this pin, and now I'll use this pin as a tool to
Mm-hmm.
create further. And technically, it has a life of its own
Mm-hmm.
until you decide, "Ah, this is beautiful, this is not beautiful. Everything's moving, everything's accelerating," until you decide, something is off or something's amiss. And this is where the ego takes off, and the mind takes off, trying to scramble with the ego to bring it way back above now again, to
Mm-hmm.
see everything for what it is. Now, if I say, just as yourself, way back with the beginning of dense matter principle, when you said, let there be light, bam, there was light. There wasn't a second contemplation.
Mm-hmm.
Now you said, let there be a planet, great, done deal. Let there be an ecosystem, great, done deal. Well, you're creating all of this, but my point is, I want you to feel the power within that. It's kind of like, I wake up, oh, got to go to work, blah, blah, blah. Well, what about we wake up? Show me what the day looks like, man. And we're going to take our body wherever we take our body, but then we're there, we're kind of in it but not of it. We're not affected with everything closing in, but now you're expanded so beautifully that, just like at the top of Mount Everest or Rushmore, you can watch all the stuff occurring outside and around you, where you can say, all right, big guns, the manifest levels, creator levels, higher levels, let the day unfold for my highest best good, so be it. Or,
Yeah.
I would love to experience this or that, but then we let it go. And
Mm-hmm.
now we've said, okay, I would love to experience this. That's when the energy starts coming in the form
Mm-hmm.
for your unanimous enjoyment.
Yeah, yeah. I have been doing this my whole life, and I found it fascinating how consciousness creates form. And so, and I repeat this in other episodes about consciousness and meditation studies, and they've done this with the Maharishi meditation thousands of time, and we have this conversation over and over again with different people about how consciousness creates form, how your forms can change based off your perspective on the matrix, etc., because you are the creator of your little mini world. And of course we are collectively creating together as well, because it's more fun to play with other people than by yourself. But still, people just don't really, even if they practice it in their own lives, don't really understand that they have dominion over form. They have dominion over the matrix. And so let's take example, the current pandemic, which eventually will be an endemic, where it's gonna stay and you're gonna have to live with it, like many other um, diseases in the world that persist a little bit longer than we want it to be. But people when they get challenged with the form of how things transpire in the matrix, they go back to their little human beingness of thinking that don't have any control over how their consciousness creates their next best experience. So how can people create a fast and better outcome of for the current worldwide pandemic? So what is a quick exercise that people can do so they can see that they actually have dominion over form?
Okay, so right now, everyone, let's close your eyes and focus your eyes right here towards the pineal and pituitary gland.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just let the body breathe as the body breathes. Let's just keep our focus there until everything in the headspace starts to become quiet. Thoughts, nagging thoughts, however, they're not flying around. Now I want you to put your attention on taking a breath in through your nose all the way down into the pelvic girdle. Hold. Then exhaling through the mouth just as slow as you can, like you're gently trying to blow out a candle. Now, let's just be right here, right now, even feeling the energy, feeling the acceleration of your vibratory levels right now, even starting to experience everything becoming quieter and quieter. Because right now, even with your eyes focused there, you cannot prove to yourself or anyone else that anything beyond your eyelids actually exists. You don't see it. You're not tasting it and so forth. Now, let's just hang out here for a moment. And as the longer we stay here, the more and more eventually joy, bliss, excitement, exuberance, it's all going to start coming up in waves. And then before you know it, it become constant. And it's pretty cool because it becomes a constant, but yet we don't have any finite focal point to project energy or our consciousness into. Right now, we're getting into total harmony with you, your mind and your body and the whole universe. You're going beyond the Akashic record realms to where none of that stuff is affecting your personal life right now, because right now we're welcoming in the new energy, a new paradigm, not trying to come in and relive past pain. But right now we have so much power to where we can acknowledge the past pain. But now you're the master. It's no longer your master. And now let's just take our consciousness from the third eye all the way down through the heart. Just put your hand right on the heart. Just like you're going to open it up, like you're screwing it open, going to the right. Let's unveil the heart, just letting it open and open to where even right now you can feel the acceleration of the vibratory levels and frequencies in megahertz of light.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel it increasing, increasing, and increasing. Now, within ourselves, we could say, higher levels, take command and show me more. So right now, let's just put a door in front of us. Let's just walk up to the door. Let's just walk inside of it, look around, explore. Even sometimes you're going to hear crowds. And that's basically the angelic, archangelic, ascended host realms applauding your arrival into you, through your body, that now we've opened up a whole different chapter, a whole different portal to where we can allow our entourage, our angelic, archangelic, ascended host realms, guidance realms, whatever name best accommodates you. Now, let's just be here for a moment. And now let's welcome in more and more and more of your light bodies, your light beingness. Also reconnecting with your Merkaba, but now letting the Merkaba start to shift around to where it starts to emanate more of the mother of pearl, that in every situation, in every angle you look at it, you feel it, it presents a different hue, a different color, a different frequency, a different tone. And now let's just take another breath. All right, speed up, body. And speed up vibratorily. Show me what you're capable of right here, right now. And right now, let's just take another breath. And on the exhale now, let's just really start to sense how far the walls in the room are. How far away, brother humanity, how far away the mass collective thought forms, perceptions, fight and flight, how you're becoming larger and larger, which is making it all go further and further away. Let's welcome in the rest of our Merkaba, because you, in even your high levels, because you are your higher levels, just at a different vibratory level. So great. Right now, let's just wash our hands, out with the old, in with the new, or just out with the old. So we can just feel more and more and more and more and more of your spaciousness. Now, let's go ahead and bring the mind forth. Let's just share with the mind right now. Everything going on day to day, moment to moment, morning, noon to night, blah, blah, blah. Well, all the duties, responsibilities, rah, rah, rah. Well, why don't we just shift our perception for a moment to where all of that are just a bunch of can-dos. There is no have to do. They're can-dos. And I want you to just feel even more spaciousness now that no one's closing in on you, and now that nothing is bombarding at you. Right now, we feel our body just becoming clearer, purer, stronger, lighter, brighter, and more in a total, complete, direct connectedness with you, your higher levels, the whole universe for that matter. Source consciousness, pure consciousness, pure energy, pure light that we have right here in ourself, but also in the palm of the hand to wield it in any direction in which feels appropriate for you. Once again, you're out of jail, you're out of prison, you're out of Egypt, and you're out of your incarnational realms right now, because now you're expanding so hugely. You're creating such a higher and higher vibrancy, benevolence, radiance, and activatedness and amplifiedness. And we're invoking the rest of you, your power, your divinity, your omnipotence, to where now, here we are with and as the whole universe, to a point where now let's take a breath. Let's welcome back all of our soul fragmentations. And that's different parts of the soul that have been fragmented through your multidimensional incarnational journeys, which has nothing to do with linear time. It has everything to do with dimensionality, to where, once again, we're shifting our projection into, let's say, the turn of let's just say the beginning of time, the beginning of the creation and ideal to put things in a linear form.
Mm.
And now, let's just go right there, right now. Let's welcome back our power, cleared and purified. And welcome back your soul fragmentations, cleared and purified now for your highest, best good, and highest, best good of all concerned. Because now it's a great example of how not still to let that incarnation still affect your current incarnation.
Right. That's a very good exercise. I enjoyed that very much. Thank you so much, William.
Time.
It actually brings up another question for you.
Oh, awesome.
What is a Syrian walk-in incarnate think of human religions?
I would say there's different parts. I would say from an overview, it's like going to a dinner buffet or something, because we have all these different pathways home. Technically home to the heart. Now, it could be Buddhism, it can be Judaism, Christian, there's no end of, new ones pop up every other day.
Oh, yeah.
And they're really just belief systems, but as a soul, as a being, as a trinity, spirit and soul and form, many use these as a pathway to wake up, a pathway back through the heart, into the heart. And then after that, well, it's different for everyone, but you reach different levels of, it's kind of like even reading the Bible, 6, 20, 1,000 different levels to it.
Right.
But from here, now as we go through religion, I want to be clear, you do outgrow it. And then you start a whole new journey beyond, because that religion can only take you so far. because the journey is still back to yourself.
Right, right. And yourself is so big.
Oh,
Yourself is source,
mhm.
is consciousness, and all of these like the different star systems with quote quote higher light body energy beings. I'm just saying that in quotes because there is
Yeah.
no higher or lower, but just for humans' concept of linear markers,
Uh-huh.
higher beings, they see all of it as one big embodiment. So there is no they're just different experiences. When you get higher, they're just different experiences. You just observe and experience like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to do it. And I watch that quite frequently. Just to relate this to human basic concepts of this concept that we've been talking about how our consciousness has dominion over form and the matrix. Like at my home, we have a little blackberry forest on one side of the property. Okay, and there's colonies of rabbits, and I would sit there, and maybe there's a patch of dirt, and I would sit there and I would look, and I would go, you know, it'd be fun is just see a bunch of baby rabbits pop out. And then baby rabbits would pop out of
Exactly.
that dirt. And I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
how funny is that? It just
Yeah.
happened. Well, and so, but you guys can exercise that. Like if you just really just think about that, you are energy, and as energy, your consciousness is the one that creates the form. You can
Mhm.
just practice that of going, I want to see baby rabbits pop up, and they all pop out. Or my children will be outside in the backyard playing, and they love chasing the rabbits that go through our yard. So I will go, oh, my son is getting reckless, so I need a rabbit to show up right now so that he could chase it and distract him from being a little bit violent with the plants that I just planted. So all of a sudden, a little rabbit will start coming out, and another one, and he'll start chasing them. So you guys can practice that every day, these little mini exercises. Um, and as you do it more and more and more, you'll see that it is within your consciousness that you create form, that you create experiences, that you manifest your next best experience. And as you do this more and more, you realize that you are much more powerful than you give yourself credit. Now, here's the thing. Now, I'm going to go to this next question about consciousness creating form and creating the matrix for these higher um, spiritual seekers. Uh, what about the want or desire to create a quote, quote, perfect utopian world?
Okay.
Okay. And everybody has a different concept of utopia. And now we're talking about the collective consciousness creating an experience that we all create together. And people have different experiences or different perspectives of how this issue with society should be created or formed and how this one should be created or formed. So since since our consciousness has dominion over how experiences are created and forms are created for us to experience in the physical, how does the collective create and impact the form of how society forms?
Now, with that, that's what I call the mass collective.
Mhm.
Mass collective, it's not a thing. It's like a web that surrounds parts of the planet. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the whole planet. For some, they work graveyard shifts. Others, they work all day. Others work swing shifts. So, it's certain places like where you live. It looks like at about 2:48 a.m. that web of thought forms collapses, and they start becoming more spacious, but then they literally poof, poof, poof. They become repolarized back into pure creator consciousness, pure consciousness as a whole. Now, when you're walking down the road during the day or driving or at work, well, now you're in smaller pockets of what I call more of a combustible stream of like, it's almost like smoke, but not really smoke. It's like particles are so thick, they're so sluggish, they're so confined in a confined space that we can call it fog, we can call it whatever we want. But what happens, you're going so quick and your mental levels are going so quick, constantly observing. So, and here comes a thought out of nowhere, technically mass collective, but then it's what we do with it, whether we act or react to it. But then we decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to put a wheel on my step, hop, sing, jump. I'm going to be right here, right now, doing whatever I'm doing, having a blast. Well, this is you coming in and expanding out to where now you're not by default taking in those thoughts. And if you look at the mass collective, it's pretty much every thought that's been thought or thunk during that period. Some are more pleasant, some maybe not so pleasant, but regardless, you know, it's like a web that is dissipating, constantly metamorphosizing. And that's what I love, because you can actually see the mass collective by going outside. It's about dusk or dawn, and let your eyes go to focus, see all the little particles. And I say that, and you can do it anytime really, but for those that are still waking up to those parts of themselves, you know, and you start really seeing the energy. They're little, like tiny balls, if you will.
The thought forms.
Yeah.
So are you saying, just so people can wrap their minds around this concept of how the collective creates form and creates the matrix, is that everybody who's participating in the experience is creating little thought forms of how things, you know, what they want in this or that experience. And so all these thought forms are floating around, and these thought forms are merging with each other, and that's what creates the combined experience.
Yeah, because that's where, because what happens, it's kind of like the 12 monkey thing, right? One monkey started washing its food in the middle of nowhere, and then one across the planet started, because you're that connected. So this is great. And bam, oh, this is great. Bam, that's great. But the thing about it, it can be at times more beneficial, more, let's just say complementary. And other times it could be very dense. So depending on the streams through the mass collective, like the pandemic thing, right? It's such a head scratcher, because it's like one person got ill, they became afraid, and then there's this whole, then 2, 3, 4, this whole blanket surround. It all led to a big blanket all over the planet. Or for now, oh my goodness, there's something to be afraid of. Oh my goodness, we got to run. Don't look at me, don't touch me. And 6 feet and blah blah blah. And it's like, that isn't as pleasant of a one. But then you could feel the mass hysteria, the mass panic.
Well, you can watch it. And this is what I found interesting about this experience of you know, be observant of the collective consciousness, and in terms of how it creates its together next best experience. Because oftentimes it comes to some kind of compromise. There's always a little bit of a push pull in terms of everybody's putting the thought forms into the collective, and this eventually it's going to come to some kind of compromise. So you're going to get a little bit of what you want, but not completely what you want. So it's kind of like a marriage. We're all kind of marrying our thoughts about how we want to create the collective experience, and you're going to get a little bit of what you want, but not completely. So you have to learn to be okay with compromise.
And with what is.
And what is, because I you know, right now as we're going through this, you know, I'm just observing different things, and I'm going, well, that's interesting. So people are learning, and I'm already way beyond the pandemic in terms of my consciousness. I'm already at the endemic part of it. I've been there for a long time, and but I have to wait for everybody else to get there, and everybody else is at different levels of consciousness. They're at different processes, and they are going through their little mindscape or whatever of what they're doing and how they're going to process it. But eventually everybody will get to that harmonizing place where there's a happy medium in terms of that collective compromise. Because I
Mhm.
think, this concept of collective consciousness creating the matrix together so that we can experience it together, I would really we we term it as collective compromise. It's really a collective compromise rather than a collective consciousness.
Mhm.
Because that's all we're ever doing is compromising with each other. Otherwise, we will all just we can be in our own little bubbles. It's not very much fun.
It kind of brings you back to even when you created the bodies, you created it with a blueprint that says, I need human interaction, human touch. That's why
Mhm.
for some, and dear ones hug each other, others they punch each other. Touch is touch. But
Mhm.
then you look at that and you say, okay, as a whole, yeah, we'll call it compromise, but it's kind of a cool one because as a whole, everyone ends up winning.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people. That's a big one is the collective consciousness because they don't
Yeah,
necessarily agree with the collective consciousness, collective compromise
yeah,
on next best experience. But oftentimes it's like going through the middle of a snowstorm. When you're in the thick of it, it's confusing. You get a little bit emotional or angry, but when it subsides and you go on the other side and you see everything settle,
uh-huh.
you're like, oh, okay, I see how that created this. It's not so bad. It wasn't that bad after all.
Yeah.
But because I talk to a lot of people from different, I have a lot of seniors in my family, and I've talking to ones who have lived through polio pandemic. They've lived through this. Well, they used to live through the Spanish flu, and many of them are saying we're just seeing a repeat of how people experience things. Everybody's going to
Yeah.
experience the pandemic in a different way, but but human behavior is very consistent in each and every single one, and people are going to experience it in certain buckets. But
Uh-huh.
when they came out of it and they look back, they're like, "Wow, we learned a lot about ourselves, and we learned a lot that many people behave much the same as they have in other ones. It's just
Mhm.
it's just what's different with this one as compared to previous pandemics in the last 100 years is that this one is televised and on the internet
And all over the place,
and
right?
all over the place on social media, and so you get everything in real time fast, and it can be a little bit that emotion of fear and anxiety and panic and all that can just accelerate so much faster because it's happening so quickly. We're sharing information so much more quicker than all the previous pandemics who didn't have instant internet.
Mhm.
So that's what makes a difference. So sometimes you have to step back and go, okay, wait. Let's not get too down the rabbit hole with this story and that story. Let's step back and look at big picture
You,
because you don't have time to process information so much when you're constantly, here's the latest news, here's the latest information, here's the late whatever. There's no time to process. And that's
yeah.
what I'm noticing is that at this time, when it comes to different collective experiences around different topics, there isn't a lot of time between new information where people can process the information that they got and think about it and sit with it. Whereas in previous generations, because there wasn't internet, they had a couple of days, so they had some time before the latest update. So they were able to kind of sit with their emotions and thoughts and go, okay, this is how I feel about this.
Mhm.
That's the difference. That's what I noticed. So what do you say to people who are, constantly getting pulled with the polarizing emotions that come up with this news story and that news story and just it just continues and continues to inundate you. What is your advice for people to
I would say, number one, before we decide to run with it, let's stop, take a breath, do a body scan. How am I feeling right now?
Mhm.
Okay, great. I don't feel coronatized or COVIDized. I don't feel fear. I don't feel panic. And then it's like, okay, if I'm going to turn on the television, so be it. But it's interesting because if none of this was televised and there wasn't internet, there wasn't satellites on and on, well, wouldn't it be amazing, Yvonne, how from here it would be almost non-existent because you see it's told, it didn't share, then it's backed up, told again, a little bit of a tweak. It's that alone is the human ego design of a virus. Now,
Yeah.
let's go back to like a mental virus. Let's come back and emotional. Come back, let's take a breath. Let's do a body scan once again. Well, okay, well, before I turned this on, I felt this way. I turned it on. It's like, I'm feeling kind of drained. What just happened? Then I would ask you to stop, take a breath. Let's welcome back your power, your energy, even all of your soul fragmentations. Let's welcome it all back to you right here, right now, cleared and purified. And then we ask ourselves, okay, it could be the media, it could be whatever outlet you so choose, but
Mhm.
what is real for you right now? What is true for you
Right.
right now or about you right now?
Right.
So before we decide to go into the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous systems, fight and flight, because that's all in the head. So it's taking your body into hyperadrenaline, then you're feeling zapped. Well, if I check in with myself about what I see, what I feel, I would even say more importantly, what you know,
Mhm.
you'll find the whole COVID thing. It could be COVID, it could be flu season, rah rah rah. You're going to find a heck of a lot, if not total immunity to it all.
Yeah. 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 And that's why I found this very interesting when I observe, because there's a lot of editorial.
Yeah.
There's a lot of editorial, and people will watch one editorial comment news story about something, and they'll watch it. I really missed the day where it was just the news. This is what happened. There was a car accident.
Yeah.
Everybody survived.
And I
That's
really
it.
look forward.
I missed that.
Oh yeah, big time. I look forward to the news when it'll start making like top story. Junior got student of the week or something.
Right.
Not from a handgun, but
Right.
that do kind of turn the page to
Hmm.
things that I would say personally, things that matter. That because that kind of thing is going to lift the consciousness faster.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that comes to survival because I mean they've already done it in scientific research that much like animals, they gravitate to the bad news bearers
Mhm.
because it triggers that survival mechanism, like where um you can get hurt or how somebody else is getting hurt, that then you're like, okay, that I know not to do that, or I know to avoid that.
Uh-huh.
It just goes into survival. And and with respect to stories that play into our survival and our fear of not surviving, that has a role in it, but you have to look at it, the big picture, like, okay, how do I feel about this? And I would say an exercise that a lot of people do not do is because a majority of current news stories are editorial.
Yeah.
Or my opinion, here's my opinion about this, and here's my opinion about that. So all people or the viewers are doing is just basically picking the person's opinions, and that they're picking up somebody else's beliefs about something. They don't really have the time between one editorial news story to another to really sit there and think about, how do I feel about this? What are my thoughts on this? How do I contemplate this? There is not much time between one editorial comment on a news story versus another that comes up, that we're constantly being told how to think and how to feel about something because, oh, what are they saying about this? Oh, what's they're saying about this? So it's just kind of like we're constantly being fed different perspectives of other people's, and then you just pick the one that you like. But in that whole mix, where is your thought about it?
Mhm.
When have you stopped to contemplate it, and how do you feel about it? Take away all of this anchor person's perspective and this anchor person's perspective. Take away their thought about it. What's
Mhm.
yours? And majority of the time, people don't have their own thought.
Exactly. They're just
Mm.
they're kind of buying it, getting swallowed up by it, and
Mm-hmm.
without ever taking a breath, it's like, well, what do I feel? How do I feel? Versus how I'm being told to feel.
Yeah, yeah. That falls into there's so much to go into that. Okay, so the 2021 Higher Self Expo is on July 17th through July 18th. And it's a 24-hour expo featuring 33 speakers, including you, William. So everyone go to higherselfexpo.com to sign up. Now, William, you're going to be presenting at the expo. What are you going to be talking about?
Well, I'm still kind of putting that together. I'm looking at manifestation. I'm also looking at the pulling away from the old, going into the new, to where like
Mm-hmm.
you've been manifesting for so long, let's just say by default, and being able to, I'll call it, reel it back in to where that phases out, to where now you're a lot more present, deliberately manifesting rather than any assumptions. And then going into more and more about your higher levels marrying the lower levels, and how it's not just an internalized marriage, how magnetically, energetically it affects everything in your world. So you're starting to go into a whole new beginning of unfoldments, unveilments, and then getting into, all right, good morning, universe, or the rest of myself. All right, show me the day, and this day unfolds quickly as I can handle with my highest best good. But also, today I would love to experience. I'd love to see. I'd love to feel what it's like to be loved. I want today, wonder what it feels like to be loved, adored, embraced. It's starting going more and more, and then getting into parts of the optimal health and well-being and homeostasis of the rebuilding, regenerating of the body, including, stepping out of the midbrain on impulse and starting to marry the frontal lobe, mid and back of the brain and the right and left sides, to where now, even with the divine intellect spiraling down within you and through you, how we're able to move through anything, everything in more of a grace, ease, and flow, rather than like linebackers on steroids.
Funny image, linebackers on steroids.
Yeah, you imagine?
Oh,
Holy moly.
that's an interesting observation too. So, I just observe things, and then sometimes I will pick a point and kind of push push my little piece, my little thought form into the collective compromise. But for the most part, I just sit back and I watch to see kind of, oh, that's interesting. And then when I watch enough, I'm like, okay, I kind of had enough of this charade. But time to put my little thought form into some things to kind of push it forward.
Yeah, I'm also going to be speaking about superseding the mind over matter and transcending magnetics, and seeing and accessing the higher levels of you and moving fully into a place within your presence, which is no longer affected by the outside world around you, but purposely being in the world, but not of nor affected with or by the world, and then rising above all the hoopla, all the
Games.
ego nonsense, and say, hey, baby, here I am, let's go. And watch literally your mind, your body, and your world metamorphosize that much faster and that much clearer.
Yeah. Oh, William, you'd be surprised. People love their games. They love their games. They do. I mean, I've spoken to some people in spiritual circles where they're like, oh, we're the light warriors, we're the WalkIn, everybody else is sheepa, everybody else is, if you're not with the light workers and you're not the WalkIn, you're the sheepa, and you're helping the evil ones, and all of these games, all of these polar games. And I'm like, well, sources, consciousness, sources in all of it, playing all parts. It's for you to recognize that and transcend it
and overcome the judgment of it.
Yeah, but then that creates a conundrum for some people because they love their games. They do love their games, but that's fine. That's fine. That's part of their life lesson. That's the learning lesson. That's fine. That's part of their learning lesson. So I respect that too. Do you have a last message for the builders of this higher dimensional, fifth dimensional, and above Earth?
Yes, you are the beloved. You are the answer in which you seek. Take a breath, feel your heart, and feel yourself within the body. Hear the deafening sound of silence, letting silence become so spacious, become so open, to where you begin to emanate and fill up that spaciousness with the wholeness of yourself, with your mind, your body, your aura, in all levels, all dimensions, every cell of your body, and also the rebuilding, regeneration of the dissolvement of the cause, the core, the reckoning effect of everything that has occurred, potentially will occur, to where it's all a pathway to come back to you. You being that of the love, you being that of the beloved, you being that of the joy and the camaraderie ship in which you seek. Namaste.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, William, thank you for offering to teach people to make peace with the life experience and the dual nature of our higher self and our lower self. So for more information, everyone, about William's books, offerings, and his courses, go and visit his website, which is William, William, Linville, LINVILLE.com. And don't forget to check out his speaking engagement at the 2021 Higher Self Expo on July 17th to 18th, which that website is higherselfexpo.com. So thank you kindly to our listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
Namaste.
Namaste.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.